Hey guys, I'm back with another video. I'm going to go over pretty much everything you need to know when it comes to Fury Prot tanking from a raid perspective. We're going to go over talents, gear. I'm going to show you some gameplay, some pros and cons of Fury Prot tanking, as well as rotation. So make sure you watch this whole video. I think with a lot of guilds on the anniversary realm starting to tank now, or starting to raid, a lot of people are looking for some tank videos. So I hope this helps you out. Now I am doing this unscripted, so it might be a little jumbled, a little bit all over the place, but that's how I like to do my videos. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Now, I actually unlearned my talents from the Fury Prot on my dual spec just so I could go over these with you guys. You're welcome. So we're going to start on the Fury side here. Obviously, 5 out of 5 on cruelty, more crits, more flurry procs, more damage, better threat generation. That's what you need to know. Now, from here, a lot of people like to do demo shout. And in fact, in my original Fury Prot video, I had you do demo shout because from a 5-man tanking pre-bis perspective, you might be the only warrior in there, especially if you're looking for gear. So I had you take the improved demo shout. Now that you are raid tanking, you should have someone designated to do improved demo shout. That is a DPS warrior. You shouldn't be using that anymore. You need to go to Unbridled Wrath. Gives you 40% chance to generate an additional rage point when you deal melee damage with a weapon. And if you get further into raiding, that actually stacks with the 5 set on the might, which gives you 20% chance to generate an additional rage point whenever damage is dealt to you. So those actually can work together. And with Unbridled Wrath, it makes sense. At a level 60, you should always be doing Unbridled Wrath. There should really only be 1 or 2 warriors in your raid that have improved demo shout just to keep that up. Now going from here, you want to go 5 in improved battle shout. Pretty self-explanatory. You want to put 5 in dual wield specialization. A lot of your tanking is going to come from dual wield. You're going to find that throwing on a shield is only situational, certain situations. And I'm going to go over some of those situations on when you should be dual wield tanking bosses or when you should be throwing a shield on certain bosses. Now on phase 1 and phase 2 here, Molten Core, pretty easy raid. Honestly, I get away with dual wielding pretty much all of it, but I am going to go over certain scenarios to where you should be throwing a shield on. So you have your 5 in dual wield specialization. You're going to put 5 in a rage. Obviously, if you're raid tanking, you're going to get crit, having that increased attack damage there. More threat generation. Death Wish gets you out of fears. Great rage generation. Always let your healers know when you are popping Death Wish. Going down here, we're going to put 5 in Flurry, literally the best talent when it comes to Fury Prot. Pretty much, honestly, the best talent for any warrior, DPS or tanking. Increases your attack speed by 30% for your next 3 swings after dealing a melee crit. Now, if you're on the Horde side, you got a Wind Fury proc for a crit. You got more Flurries, more Wind Fury procs, more threat generation, more crits. It just keeps on going, baby. Hell of a drug. Now, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Bloodthirst here. Self-explanatory, your main threat generation outside of Heroic Strike from raid tanking is your Bloodthirst. Now we have 19 points left. We're going to go ahead and head over here. You're going to put 5 in Shield Specialization. That's for when your shield situations come up. You're going to put 2 in Improved Blood Rage. You're going to go ahead and put you're going to put 3 in Toughness. Now hold the phone there. Keep the 3 points that we're going to talk about if you want to put in extra in Toughness. We're going to put 3 here for now. We're going to take our Last Stand. Obviously, Last Stand is your most, honestly, outside of Flurry, Last Stand will save your life, especially in a hardcore situation, a raiding situation, any tanking situation. Last Stand will automatically save your life. I pop Last Stand. Just for example, I pop it anytime my health hits about 30% or lower on a massive crit or a crushing blow, or if I'm walking into Gar and we do the mage pull, I always pop Last Stand just to make sure that in case all those mobs come in, maybe we have another off tank mess up, I'm popping Last Stand. Where Last Stand is an amazing talent. You want to put only 1 point in improved shield block because all you care about is that 1 point that it helps you block an additional attack. Now you want to go ahead and you want to put all 5 of those points in Defiance. Increases your threat generated by your attacks by 15% while in defensive stance. Huge. Now, you have 2 extra talent points. From a Molten Core perspective, you could put 2 in Improved Taunt. Everything in Molten Core can be taunted. In Blackwing Lair, not so much. That ability or those talent points will essentially become useless once you start getting into Blackwing Lair from the majority of the bosses. Now, what I like to do, especially from a raid tanking perspective, is I told you from a 5-man, I just put the 2 points in Toughness, get the extra armor value, call it good. But now from a raid tanky perspective, Bloodthirst and Heroic Strike are your bread and butter. I got a rend here. I'm not going to boon it though. I'm doing a video. So we're going to put 2 in improved Heroic Strike. Now it doesn't seem like a lot. It reduces the cost of your Heroic Strike ability by by 2 rage points. However, on some of these bosses that last kind of long, like Gar is one that lasts pretty long. To the other Molten Core bosses, you're going to find Chromagus lasts a while. Broodlord Lash Layer lasts a while. Valistraz, improved Heroic Strike, you're going to find that this reduced value has a ton of value the longer the fight goes. Obviously, the more rage you're saving, the more, you're pushing it. So that for talents here, again, let's go over this real quick. 2 in improved Heroic Strike. We're going to go 5 in Cruelty, 5 in Unbridled Wrath, 5 in improved Battle Shout, 5 in Enrage, 5 in Dual Wield Spec, 1 Death Wish, 5 in Flurry, 1 in Bloodthirst. And then over here on the Prot, we're going to go 5 in Shield Spec, 2 in improved Blood Rage, 3 in Toughness, 5 in Defiance, 1 in improved Shield Block, and your Last Stand. Now those are our talents. Let's look into some of the gear. Now, before we go into some of my gameplay and breakdown rotation and my threat generation and things like that, I did want to talk about pros and cons, and I also wanted to talk about gear when it comes to Fury Prot. Now, keep in mind, we are in currently phase 2 of the anniversary realm, so my gear, compared to some of these other videos out here where they're rocking, Thunder Fury, Blackwing Layer, just really massive gear, is completely different from what I have in this video. So keep that in mind when we go through gear and how I'm doing the best to have a good amount of mitigation, but also a good amount of threat generation gear too. So going into this, your biggest pro, obviously, to Fury Prot is threat generation, especially right here, and it is way better than Deep Prot. Now, in 2025, the DPS mindset, telling your DPS to stop DPSing in certain situations just isn't good. What's the point of gearing them up? They need to be able to do damage, especially in some of these later phases. Maybe these players haven't exactly seen yet in some of these anniversary realms. Teaching them to lay off DPS really isn't the right move. It's more about generating better threat as a tank, and that's exactly what Fury Prot does. Now, the biggest con is obviously, people in my YouTube comments saying, oh, your healers must hate you. As a tank, it is your job to analyze your raid, especially if you are from a raid leading and main tank perspective. You should be able to find out pretty quickly what your healers can and can't do, what your DPS can perform and not perform at that certain level that you're looking for. So if you're at a boss, let's say like, Gar, which is a pretty lengthy MC boss compared to the rest of them in Molten Core, obviously that might be a boss where, okay, you have dual wield tank, get enough threat, and then throw on a shield to make it easier for your healers as the fight goes on, especially if they're helping heal off tanks that are holding some of those Gar ads, and some of them are banished. So really, the con really isn't a con at all. It's up to you as a tank to kind of feel out what your raid and can and can't do, and that's why you need certain gear sets, and that is exactly why I love the add-on item rack. /item rack space OPT allows you to basically make gear sets and then keybind them as you go, so you can quickly throw a fire set on, quickly throw a mitigation set on, or quickly throw just a pure flat Fury Prot DPS build or gear that helps you do that. Now, what I have done with my character is not only I have good amount of mitigation, I also have a good amount of threat generation. Now this is phase 2 gear. Take a look. I have Gauntlets of Might, great mitigation, but also a hit chance on it. The belt with a dodge. I still have the Valor leggings, unfortunately. I have the Sabatons of Might, good amount of strength on here. Now this is where this is key. I like the Elven rings from a Fury Prot tanking perspective over Blackstone rings simply because of that agility. 20 agility gives you 1% crit as a warrior. Not only do I have 2% hit from these rings, I'm getting 30 agility. That's a crit and a half from 2 rings. Guard Captain, AP and hit. Hodge, I also have Blackhand's Breath if I do want the extra crit on a boss like Shazra, where I'm strictly basically just holding threat while I'm DPSing. We have our Bone Slicing Hatchet. We have Quell Sarar. Our Might Bracers. Now this is a big piece too. The Breastplate of Chromatic Flight. This is one of my best threat generation pieces. 10 agility, 20 strength, 30 stam, a lot of loaded stats and good armor on that. Another great Fury Prot cape. I have a 3 agility enchant. I'm getting half percentage of crit on that with 14 stamina on a cape. Nightbane is also good. Obviously, I haven't been able to get better shoulders. If you really need the hit, you could honestly do True Strike if you wanted, but I wouldn't recommend it. Onyxia's Tooth Pendant, great hit, crit, half percentage of crit off the agility, 10 fire resist good. And then obviously you have your OG of all OGs, the Lionheart helmet with 2% hit and 2% crit. Now I am 1% hit off of my cap with swords. So if you are an orc by chance and you are rocking double axes, your hit chance is 6%. If you are rocking anything but that, you need 9%. So I'm currently sitting at 8%. I need one more hit. I'm really praying for that Band of Ikuria. But as you could tell, my gear is a great mix of mitigation, but also giving me a lot of offensive threat with a lot of strength and a lot of agility that allows me to crit and allows me to get a lot of good AP value for my Bloodthirst. And we'll talk about that in the rotation. So I'm looking at my crit here, really a good, like threshold for your crit as a Fury Prot tank is 25%. And if I go to Berserker Stance, which sometimes you might open up with Berserker Stance simply to use Berserker Rage, and we'll talk about that. In Berserker Stance, I am sitting at 19%. And in D Stance, obviously you take 3% off of that. I'm 16% chance, but with Mongoose, with all of the world buffs, I am easily over that 25% threshold. So in phase 2 gear right now, I am in that beautiful sweet spot of having enough crit for threat generation, and I also have a lot of mitigation at the same time, so I'm never putting my healers in risk. Now let's go ahead and look into some gameplay. Now before we dive in the gameplay, I just want to go over 2 consumables that you should always be popping before every boss when it comes to Fury Prot tanking or just tanking overall in raids, and that is the Mighty Rage Potion or a Stone Shield Potion. Now, depending on the boss, some of the bosses might strictly do more magic damage. So obviously armor doesn't really do anything with that. But with hard-hitting bosses like Broodlord Lashlayer, like we've talked about a couple times now, potentially Ragnaros, who Ragnaros is not just fire damage. Gar is another one, depending on your raid, or Golmag. Greater Stone Shield Potion increases your armor for 2,000 for 2 minutes. Now, if you've been doing Molten Core, this is easily 2-minute duration is longer than most, or if not all, of your Molten Core fights. So throwing this on allows you to basically have a shield on without having a shield. So that way dual wield threat generation is a lot easier and less stress on your healers. Now, when you have bosses that do a lot more magic damage or perhaps fire damage, like Baron or other bosses like that you will run into later on in the game, Mighty Rage Potion increases your rage by 45 to 75 and increases your strength by 60, which is 120 attack power for 20 seconds. That's 120 attack power to boost your Bloodthirst for at least 3 to maybe 4 uses of that Bloodthirst, and you get to start off with Rage to generate that snap threat. So those are 2 consumables that you should always be popping before every pull when it comes to raiding. All right, guys, as promised, I wanted to go over some gameplay. So I'm going to go over some of our bosses that we've done, and this is actually a hardcore raid that we just did over on Doomhow last night. I'm going to go over some of these bosses and exactly why Fury Prot is the best option, even in hardcore scenarios when it comes to threat generation and just being an overall good tank. Now, Fury Prot, again, is your best chance at survival as a tank simply because of threat generation. In the way that people DPS nowadays and they know how to mid-max, you need to keep up with that constant improvement that your DPS is going to see as they gear up. So Magmadar is the perfect example to show you why Fury Prot is top tier compared to a Deep Prot situation. Now you're going to see why. Mainly because Magmadar is a boss that just stands still. It's easy for DPS to just pump, and I got to find ways to keep up with that. So let's go ahead and let's look into the boss. Obviously, before I even pop anything, I'm sorry for pausing the video already. I have Death Wish pop. You need to let your casters know, your healers know that you're popping Death Wish. This boss likes to fear pretty much immediately, so that's why I have Death Wish up, but Death Wish also helps with immediate threat generation. Look at that. Look at that massive crit, 867, that's off of Bloodthirst. I immediately critted on the boss with my yellow damage. I'm hit capped, so I knew I was more than likely going to get that hit off that yellow or the Bloodthirst off, so we have massive threat already off the rip. Now, before we go into rotation, you don't always want to open up with Bloodthirst check out my rage bar. Now, before you do Magmadar, you kill a bunch of trash. That helps you have that rage bar. Honestly, if you really want that snap threat, I'd stay away from Bloodthirst and I would immediately use Heroic Strike, and that talent with the 2% reduced rage that we took helps us with that. I would open up with Heroic Strike and then wait for that Bloodthirst once you get that rage pumping. But in this Magmadar situation, we started with Bloodthirst. So I immediately started with the crit. Let's take a look at the threat meter. Take a look at that. Next melee hit, 176. I already have 1,000 lead. Just off of that, I immediately queued the Heroic Strike. You can see the 225 weapon swing timer is a great add-on. I suggest to use it. We've talked about Heroic Strike queuing in our other videos. Make sure you go check that out. Now you're going to see here I Heroic Strike, and look at that. After the Heroic Strike, I have almost a 3K lead immediately. Look at this. Some of our DPS is getting ready to pop cooldowns already. Let's play the video a little bit and watch my threat bar here. Over here, I'm circling. Ohms must have had a massive crit. It looks like he already popped Death Wish. He's going. I'm going to. As you can see on my bar here, I am popping Heroic Strike like it's candy. I already critted my Blood Strike or my Bloodthirst again. I am up to a 6K lead on threat in a matter of, let's say, I don't know, let's check the video, 11 seconds. I have a massive threat lead, and you are not going to get this with Deep Prot. I'm sorry, but you are not. This allows the DPS to go hard. They like to pump. You give them the opportunity to pump, right? So we're going here. Now your basic rotation is going to be this. You are going to, if you need snap threat like we talked about, open with Heroic Strike. However, you should always be starting with Bloodthirst in most situations. You are going to Bloodthirst, then you are going to press Revenge, both of those on cooldown. You should have your other warriors sundering for you. You should not be touching Sunder Armor at all. You need to worry about that threat generation. So Bloodthirst on cooldown, Revenge on cooldown, and then every time you have Rage, which you're getting hit by a boss, you're always going to have Rage for the most part, then you Heroic Strike. So again, Bloodthirst on cooldown, Revenge on cooldown. Anything when you're Rage capped, Rage starved, then goes to Heroic Strike. So let's take a look at the rest of this video. I'm critting. I'm getting Flurry procs. I have an Elemental Sharpening Stone on the offhand. I just critted another Bloodthirst. My threat generation is huge. I'm critting off my melees. Now we're going to have people stop popping cooldowns. Ohms popped his. Everybody else just popped their Blood Fury, and then Bloodthirst is coming, or I'm sorry, Death Wish is coming now. I have a massive 12K lead, and that is actually the off tank there. So really on DPS, I almost have a 20K lead. Now, when you get about a 20 to 25 to 30K lead, if you are in a beginning raid and you want to give your healers a break, this is a great time to throw on your shield. Let's say your healers are really struggling. Like you take a look at our mana bars here, we're looking great, right? We're looking great. But let's say, this is your first run, especially in hardcore, people are a little nervous. When you have that 20 to 25 to 30K threat lead, help your healers out. Throw a shield on. Why do I need threat generation anymore? I have a massive lead, and if it happens to blow that lead, then you put out the dual wields again, and then you go ham like you're a DPS warrior. This is a great boss to show you why Fury Prot is top tier. It allows your DPS to do what they're supposed to do without you hindering them, and that is DPS. Let's take a look at some more bosses here. Gahanna's not really one to take a look at. I like Gar. Gar is another one where you can really see the threat lead here. Let's go ahead and skip ahead. Let's go ahead. Okay. All right. Perfect. Gar. So Gar is another interesting fight where you really got to have that snap threat. So you're actually going to see here that I'm able to open up. I have a Rage potted. As you can see, I popped a Rage Potion. This is a great boss to do that. I have a Rage potted. I still have Bloodthirst if I need it. I have a Mage pulling. I need to get Snap Threat on Gar immediately because the off tanks are taking some of the ads and the Banishers going out. All other like 36 players are on the boss. So I really need to get that threat going, right? This is a great example, again, of Fury Prot. I have Gar ready to go. I taunt just in case. Everything in Molten Core is taunted. As you can see, I popped Last Stand as well, just in case if I have to eat extra melee hits here for whatever reason. Look at my tanks in the back here. I have No Face, and Level ready to pick up those ads for me. I immediately crest, bloodthirst, and I had a heroic strike queued. So as you can see here, let's play a little more. Boom, I already have a 1k threat lead before anybody even opened up. We had a hunter open up. I got that heroic strike pumping. Perfect heroic strike. I have tons of rage. Critted on the heroic strike. I pop bloodthirst. Critted on that. Critted on another heroic strike. As you can see, I am heroic strike queuing, so my offhand never misses. And if it does, it's very unlikely. That is the beauty of heroic strike, because a lot of these crits you see are actually from my offhand. So let's go ahead. Massive bloodthirst prick there, or proc, I'm sorry, crit. As you can see, I'm already up to pretty much a 6k lead, with the next person being a rogue who can feint or vanish if it's absolutely needed. You can see he's climbing, he's climbing, he's climbing. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Now I'm looking at a little bit of rage problems here, and this is where Fury Prot's a beautiful thing. As you can see here, I'm already up to a massive lead. I'm not counting the rogue simply because he has ways of getting out of that threat. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at another boss. Let's see. Baron is a great example of you needing snap threat. Let's go ahead and take a look at Baron. So Baron here, as you can see, I got hit by something pretty hard. DPS is just opening up. As you can see, once again, I have a massive lead on threat from the start. That's because I popped a rage potion. As you can see, I bloodthirsted, and I already have that heroic strike queued. As you can see, here we go. Massive threat lead to start here. I'm already at a 2k, and we jumped up from a 4 to a 7. As you can see, our threat is continuously growing. Now, this boss is a little tricky simply because the range can actually do a lot of damage here while you're sitting out. What I recommend is, if your guild is really geared, is obviously the tank can get away with sitting in the first Inferno just to get that threat pumping. So here's a we'll do Golmag. I think Golmag is another one where no, actually let's do Rag. Rag's a good spot here. So Rag, everybody knows Wrath of Rag is a threat reset. So you really have to work on that snap threat. As you can see, immediately starting off, I have a massive lead on DPS. We let melee start right away. I'm cruising. I'm fine. I'm not worried about I'm not worried about the range because they don't have a threat table here. Now on the Wrath of Rag, your threat is going to reset. That's the off tank there at 7.6, which is totally fine. So I have melee coming out about now. Melee's coming out. So I know I have to get threat quickly here. So I'm saving rage. Look at this. I'm trying to save as much rage as possible, so on that threat wipe, I can instantly come in with the heroic strike or a bloodthirst. As you can see, Wrath of Rag popped. I instantly critted on that heroic strike. So you're going to see me on the threat meter there. I'm already on the threat meter. Perfect. Melee is going to come in any second, and I'm at a massive lead already. So overall, Fury Prot is top tier. Now, on some bosses that you will see eventually, like on Blackwing Lair, you're going to have Brood Lord, who has a massive mortal strike. You're going to have Ebon Rock, Fire Maul. A lot of these bosses come with thrash abilities or massive crits. That's when you need the shield, especially on pre-pulls, when you have to take Brood Lord to the right side, or you got to move the drakes around. That's when you need to be using shields. When you have massive threat leads is when you need to start implementing shields. Again, Fury Prot is bis at threat generation, but if your guild cannot keep up with that, as far as from a healing perspective, that's when you need to start tweaking your gear. It's all about feel. For our guild, I can dual wield pretty much every boss in Molten Core. Will I be doing that in Blackwing Lair? No, but I'll still have amazing threat generation with better gear and better weapons. Fury Prot is the way to go. I hope this video helped. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Be sure to subscribe.